When we did our first ever Zoom call, you said to me, things don't happen for a reason. We have to make reason out of the things that happen.
I cannot believe that everything happens for a reason. There is no reason good enough for my daughter to have died. However, I can take her death and I can make reason out of it every single day that I'm alive.
Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. My guest today is Kelly Cervantes. Kelly is an award-winning author, speaker, and advocate whose work bridges personal storytelling and public impact. She's known for writing about parenting, grief, resilience, and the ongoing work of making meaning after loss. Her latest book is a memoir, The Luckiest, a memoir of love, loss, motherhood, and the pursuit of self. And it captures her journey through heartbreak, love, and self-discovery, looking honestly at how we reconcile luck, loss, and hope all along the way. I was so moved by this conversation, and I'm so excited for you to listen in. Kelly, welcome to In Confidence.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love that Dr. Wendy Balabi introduced us. Talk about a sisterhood.
Oh my goodness. I don't think I would be where I am without all of the women in my life. Like, you think about those beautiful friends that become your sisters that like help you make the connections or help hold your hand. Female sisterhood. It's everything.
And it's nice that we're living in this phase where we don't compete with each other, that we collaborate, we hype each other, like your success doesn't take away from mine.
100%.
And so I love that Dr. Wendy was like, you must meet Kelly. And it's been a year in the making of our friendship. So this is great. We start every episode with the same question, which is, what are you proudest of from the last 12 months of your life?
So personally, I think I'm the proudest of surviving cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January, and I am officially cancer-free after multiple surgeries and reconstruction and nipple tattoo. Like, the whole thing is just it's bonkers, and it's been the whole year, and I'm really proud of myself for like getting through that. And like, but also while getting through that, I published a book. So like professionally, I'm like doing both of these things at the same time, and it wasn't easy, and it was stressful, and it was emotional, and I didn't do it by myself, but it was a big year for growth for me and challenging myself in terms of my ultimate nemesis, control. And I really excited to sort of look into this next year from a more this year really tore a lot of things down for me. And next year I'm really ready to rebuild fresh.
All things can be true. And I will hold space for the fact that you are a cancer survivor and thriver, and you published a book in the midst of all of this. That's a lot. You can be proud of a lot this year. Well, and for our audience who doesn't know you, can you talk about how you make a difference in the world?
Yeah, making a difference in the world is such a huge part of my life. I sit on two medical research boards. One is Cure Epilepsy, which is the largest non-governmental funder of epilepsy research in the world. The other is the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation, which helps families, patients, caregivers hold their hand as they're going through the diagnostic odyssey. So many patients remain undiagnosed with rare or ultra-rare conditions, and it can be a really, really long journey to get that diagnosis. I came to both of those organizations because my daughter, Adelaide, she was born in 2015, and she seemed healthy at first, and then very quickly we realized she wasn't meeting milestones. And then when she was 7 months old, she had her first seizure, was diagnosed with epilepsy. That became infantile spasms, which is a particularly devastating form of pediatric epilepsy. I quit my job to take care of her. The same week, my daughter's diagnosed with epilepsy. My husband, Miguel Cervantes, is cast as Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, in the Broadway and Chicago productions. So we were living these crazy highs and these wild lows. And I started writing about that, trying to find purpose and find meaning. I started joining these nonprofits, and ultimately It was determined by my daughter's doctors that, she was undiagnosed for the duration of her life, but they were able to determine that whatever it was neurodegenerative. And she passed away just a few days shy of her 4th birthday. And I felt like I was forced into retirement from this job that in the beginning I had sort of resented, but I grew to love and was the most meaningful job I'll ever have in my entire life. But I didn't know what to do with myself, but I still had writing. I still had my advocacy. And out of that, I joined the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation Board in addition to Cure Epilepsy. I took all of my writing that I had been doing about caregiving, about living these crazy and this, my husband called it holding onto a parachute in one hand and a rocket in the other, and you're just emotionally, energetically, all of these things being pulled in opposite directions. And so I took that and I started writing about grief. I wrote my first book, Normal Broken, which is meant to be a grief companion for that earliest couple years of grief when you don't want to heal. And trying to help people get to that place where they understand what healing can actually look like. And then most recently, I wrote my book, The Luckiest, which is a memoir and really sort of helps me look back at my life because I'm 43 years old and I'm on my 4th career, and that can feel like a lot of failure. But in reality, every step, every journey of my life has really led me to where I am today. And while there's 1,000,001 things I wish I could change, not least of which my daughter suffering and passing, where I am today in my life is really beautiful. And I don't get here without going through all of that.
Well, I'm so moved that we get to go into all the things that you have experienced and written about. I do want to ask one question, and this is for me personally, because I often don't know what to say when someone is grieving.
Yeah.
For our audience, can you share, as someone who has explored grief so deeply, if someone is going through that sort of pain and grieving, what do you most want people to say to you?
Her name.
Oh,
I want them to say her name. I want them to remember her with me. Bringing her up is not like, I think that people get so nervous that they're going to bring Adelaide up and it's going to make me sad. I'm thinking about her every minute of every day. There's no way that anyone can bring her up and it's like, oh my goodness, I haven't thought about her in a week. Saying, just mentioning her. I was thinking about Adelaide the other day. Her symbol is a ladybug. I saw a ladybug. I have friends who will text me. They'll be like, I saw a ladybug today. I thought of Adelaide. And that means so much to me because I think so many grievers, their biggest fear is that their loved one is going to be forgotten.
Oh, okay. Not to bring it back to Hamilton, but that's the song that changed my life, which is who remembers you when you're gone.
Legacy, exactly.
Yeah.
And so knowing that your loved one is being remembered outside of you, that's everything.
Okay, so that helps me because when our chief of staff, Claire, put this guide together, she said, is it okay that we talk about her daughter?
Yes.
And I'll tell you why I said yes. I said, first of all, she's written books about it. And secondly, I went on your Instagram, and while you were on book tour, her name popped up everywhere. It was the name of a restaurant, or I saw you at an Instagram post where you're like, she's with me on this book tour. Her name is everywhere.
She was Adelaide was the name of a restaurant across the street from one of the bookstores. At another bookstore, they have me seated in front of this bookcase and I look down and the book right behind me at hip level is named Adelaide. And I was like, girl, I see you. I feel like she has to be rather blunt with me sometimes when she's letting me know that she's here with me. She's afraid I'm going to miss the signs. But no, I love talking about her. I love remembering her. And I love so much when other people, and even if they don't know her, when they ask about her like that, it's just, it means the world to me.
So if someone is close to you saying, what was your favorite thing about her? Or Adelaide, tell me a memory that would make us smile right now. That's okay.
100%.
And for us we are new friends,
Yeah.
we went into it on our Zoom. But what should someone who is coming to you as, as an author and whatnot, what's something that I could say?
You could, but similar. Tell me about her.
Okay.
If you find you are introduced to someone and they share a loss, what was their name? Tell me something about them.
Okay, tell me something about Adelaide right now.
She was, so she was non-mobile and nonverbal, but she was highly opinionated. She would, our nurse discovered this actually. She was playing music one day and it was like Baby Shark or like traditional children's music. And Adelaide was kicking and screaming. Her eyes were closed. She was pissed. And the nurse was like trying to figure out what was going on. Was she uncomfortable? Was it this? Was it that? And then she goes to change the music and she changes it to Frank Sinatra. And all of a sudden Adelaide calmed. She opened her eyes. She's looking around. My girl is a Frank Sinatra fan.
She loves a crooner. She
Right?
loves a crooner. Okay. I love that. Okay. Next time I hear Frank Sinatra, I'm actually going to think of Adelaide.
That's another one of the signs she likes to send me. We'll be walking down the street and all of a sudden out of a car, I'll hear Frank Sinatra and we'll be like across the street from an apartment that we used to live in.
Okay. That is probably the best advice I've gotten recently is if someone's grieving, it's okay to ask. My literary agent lost her mother this summer, and the next time I talk to her, I'm going to ask her about her mom.
Yeah.
And she actually told me, she said, save every video and every voicemail your mother's ever left you, and you're going to want to hear her voice.
Yeah.
That's what she told me to do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into your latest book, The Luckiest, a memoir of love, loss, motherhood, and the pursuit of self. Now, I always say we write the book we most need to read or read ourselves, or we write it for ourselves. Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book because I was struggling with my own personal identity and where I was going in my life. And I had this book had been in the making for years, and it has gone through several iterations. My first attempt at writing the book was actually just Adelaide's life. And then I realized that that was more a book for me to remember her because time is a memory thief. And I was terrified of forgetting her. And so I needed to write this book that was her life. But that wasn't the book that I needed to publish. The book that I ultimately decided to publish was one, when I was in my 20s, I thought that whatever my career was going to be the career for the rest of my life. My dad had the same job his entire life with the same company. My mom had stayed home with us. She had been a nurse, and then she stayed home with us, and then she went back to school to be a mental health therapist. But I had this vision that, like, if your first job doesn't work out, then that's a failure. And I needed to rewrite that piece in my mind and reframe all of that and look at it to see that each layer of my life, it was, the book is ultimately, every chapter is a different layer of my life. And I got that inspiration from a quote from the poet Maggie Smith. She said in her book, we could make this place beautiful, that we are all nesting dolls carrying the previous versions of ourselves inside of us. And I loved that quote so much. So this book is my personal nesting doll. It is all of these different layers. It is all of the trauma and the heartbreak and the joy and the celebrations that bring me to who I am today. And it is, every layer builds on one, it heals another, or it pushes a bruise that's already there. But I don't get to appreciate my husband and the relationship that we have without having a traumatic college relationship and learning from that, and then being able to appreciate everything that Miguel brings into my life. I don't get to be the public speaker that I am today without having been an actress in my first career and learning all of those skills, learning the hustle, learning how to perform. All of it adds up to where I am, and I hope that people can appreciate that we are constantly becoming sort of the next painted doll in the series of our lives.
Yeah, as you say that, Harvard Business Review did a recent piece that said people are scared to leave their first career. They're afraid of the shame and embarrassment with their loved ones. Like, I said I'm going to be a teacher, but I don't feel like a teacher anymore. Will everyone all of a sudden think less of me? And they did this study that said they told a group of teachers, actually, no one cares. They're actually really happy for you to find who you want to be. And it encouraged those teachers to send out resumes, to apply. Do you think embarrassment and shame factors into when you're trying to move into a different phase of your life?
100%. Well, absolutely. Because we are, outside of perhaps my mother, who seems to have an uncanny ability to not worry about what people think about her.
Mine too.
I think most of us do, especially in this age of social media where everything is presented and curated. And yes, we worry about that because it does, like, if you decide that this career isn't for you, then were you wrong to begin with? Was it meaningless? Was it pointless? And I think instead we have to understand that we are growing, that we are changing, and your goals and ideals when you started in that career, they're going to change. I started as an actress and it had been my dream since I was young. And then I got married and I wanted to start a family, and my dreams and my goals shifted. And now I really wanted health insurance. I really wanted a stable income, and a career in the arts at that time in my life wasn't going to provide me that. And I had an opportunity to move into hospitality, and I really struggled. I felt like I was giving up on little Kelly's dream. But in reality, my dreams just shifted. My goals shifted, and it's okay to let go of old dreams and create new ones.
So what advice would you now give that younger Kelly? Like, what are the things that you would go back and tell her? And I'm sure it's in the book. So, but for our listeners that haven't bought the book yet, what are some of the pieces of advice you would go back and tell that version of yourself?
I would tell her that it's okay to grow. It's okay to change. It's okay to let go of those old dreams, and that nothing is finite. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is forever. Even the good things that you want and that you love and that you treasure, none of that is forever either. And so enjoy what you can while you have it, and continue to grow, continue to figure out what makes you happy and what fulfills you, and let that change.
And does that then give you the permission to tell people what you're doing next?
Sure. If you want to. Okay. All right. Yeah. I think that that's a choice. I think that we need to allow ourselves. Okay. So I was talking with this, an author, Amy Bettersmidbet, and she wrote a book on parenting teenagers. And we were having this conversation, and she was talking about how teenagers cocoon, teenage boys in particular. They will go into their rooms, they close the door, and they like live there in like the disgusting
and you have
filth
one,
instinct.
right?
And I have one. And he goes and he closes the door, and she calls it cocooning. And I was like, yes, they are growing, they are like devolving, they are figuring things out. And then they come out and they're like these teenage young adult men. But I think that we have this perception that that is the one time in our life that we're allowed to cocoon, that this one coming of age. What if we give ourselves permission to cocoon in different places throughout our lives? And so we give ourselves that permission to stop and to pause and to figure out what we want to grow into, what brings us joy, what we can let go of. And I feel like I've had several of those without realizing it throughout my life, one of which was Adelaide is diagnosed, my family moves to Chicago, Miguel's on stage and he's getting standing ovations, and I resented him immensely. I didn't feel like I had control over my life anymore, and I feel like I spent that year cocooning and really figuring out like, okay, this is my life right now. I don't have as much control over my life as I would like, but how do I make the most of this? What decisions are mine to make and what directions can I go forward? And so I come out of that and I start writing and I start getting involved in the epilepsy and disability communities, and you find your path forward. But I do think that we have to allow ourselves those cocooning times, and they're okay. They're not bad to take a pause and be like, I just have to figure this out right now.
And I wonder if because I do go back to that piece around shame and embarrassment. I love the ability to say, I'm cocooning right now.
Yeah.
I think we should just make that a thing. I don't know how long I'll be in this cocoon, but I'll emerge as some version of a butterfly.
Yes.
It might be different colored wings. Yeah. It might be different size, but I'm going to cocoon right now. And you can ask me what I'm up to, but I'm just going to let you know I'm cocooning.
I'm figuring it out. I'm cocooning.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's make that a thing. Let's make fetch a thing. What does, the title of this book is The Luckiest. What does luck mean to you? And I always say people aren't lucky, they're just ready when things appear. What's the significance of the word luck and luckiest in terms of the book?
So luck is something that I have struggled with as a concept for so much of my life. I think because my childhood, I felt very lucky. Upper middle class family. My parents were supportive and loving and caring and compassionate. I wanted for nothing. And I felt so fortunate. And then as I get into my adult life, it's sort of one asteroid after another laying at my feet. And yet still I would hear people, for example, this is a scene in the book where we're at the theater. I'm watching Miguel perform Hamilton. Broadway has just reopened after the pandemic. And I'm sitting next to someone, we start chatting. She's a musical theater student and she's over the moon, so excited to be there. And she realizes that Miguel is my husband and she goes, oh my goodness, you guys are so lucky. Ooh. And in my mind, I have two reactions. My first is, Miguel is not lucky to have this. He was ready when the audition came, right? To your point, like he has been working in this industry for decades. That's not luck, that's hard work. But the other piece of it was, my daughter's dead. I'm not lucky.
Yeah.
But what she saw was this successful person on stage and his supportive family in the audience, right? So luck is all about our perception. It is, you may see someone on social media and in those squares, they look lucky, but you don't know what's beyond that. Luck is what we show the world. It's what we perceive of the world. And it's also the time frame that we look at. I can look at my life this morning and I was like, I was lucky this morning because I found a parking spot near the train station, right? But if I look at the entire day, if my train is late going back, am I still lucky? So it's just about that perspective. I don't think anyone would look at the entirety of my life at this point and be like, wow, she was the luckiest. But I'm not the unluckiest either. And I wish that my daughter didn't have to suffer. I wish that she was still alive and here with me. But I truly do feel the absolute luckiest that I got to be her mother.
Whew. Okay. All right. I want to unpack one thing that you just said. Luck. First of all, yes. Thank you, Adelaide, for being here. I think with the soundtrack for this, we don't have the rights to any Sinatra songs. I want to unpack one thing that you said. Luck is a perception.
Yeah.
And so, I have a similar feeling about gratitude. I said gratitude makes us feel like we're beneficiaries. And I want to flip that around and be like, no, I did that. Like, this is like, so how should we think about luck?
I think of luck as everything that I can't control. It is the other. It is what is out of my control, and that means luck could be good, it could be bad, but it is everything else that is out there that is outside of my control. And that has brought me a sense of peace in thinking about it, that I think almost because I don't think about it, because I try so hard in my life to focus on just the pieces that I can't control and let go of what I can't. So as a result, I think I've let go a lot this concept of luck and looking to luck or depending on luck or hoping for luck. No, I will hope for action, and I will take the actions necessary to try and create whatever I'm hoping for to materialize in my life.
I love that. That gives it a sense of agency.
Yes.
I love that separation of it. So I can feel lucky, but it wasn't because of some external force. It's because I created that. I love that repositioning. A lot of our listeners have shared with us that they're questioning their identity.
Yeah.
And this whole book is about identity. When I think about people losing themselves at work or in their personal lives, especially doom scrolling, all of those things, how do you think about helping people get closer to their identity or feeling comfortable about it? What's the advice you have?
So I would say if you are struggling with your current identity, do your goals align with where you are now? Are you holding on to outdated goals? Like when I was performing and I struggled with my identity in that regard, but my goals of, accepting an Oscar no longer matched up with my more immediate personal goals of starting a family, that like they didn't match up. And so I was having this identity crisis because I was clinging to old goals that no longer matched what I currently wanted out of my life. And so I think looking at that and reassessing what your goals are, and then also looking at what you can control in your life, because that's been the other piece of when I have had the most trouble with my identity, is that I am clinging to pieces of my life that are out of my control.
I'm going to share a personal story, which is our business has a fashion manufacturing component, has a label, and now a media content platform. And during the pandemic, when no one was buying women's workwear, right? No one was buying anything to go to work because they weren't going to work.
Right.
Our entire category went to zero, and the sales of my company were negative. But I kept holding on to this goal of, we're going to still be in department stores. We're still going to be a fashion brand and all of those things. And then for the first year of the pandemic, we made hospital gowns and face masks. And I kept clinging to the goal of, no, when things reopen, we will go back to manufacturing full collections and doing fashion. We had just done Fashion Week for the first time before the pandemic started. And now, 5 years later, I can tell you my goals are very different. I mean, our mission statement has always been, we catalyze confidence. But when I think about the role that the fashion component plays in it, it's still there. It's got a different purpose now. And during the pandemic, we published our book and we launched a podcast and all those things. And I'm like, there are things that give me joy. And I feel like we're making a bigger difference against our mission, that producing 80 styles each season is not going to get us there. We can produce 6 styles and make people really happy. And that was hard for me to let go of that goal of being this $1 billion fashion brand, which is not my goal anymore. I'll give you another one. I always say now, like, I'm never going to be a billionaire. I'm going to say that out loud. But I want to be a billionaire in terms of total value created. Just people I introduce, opportunities I send to people. Dr. Wendy and I were email about something that I pitched her for, which I think she's going to get. Yay! And I was like, I'm going to be a billionaire in terms of total value created. That's my new goal.
Yes.
So I love this idea of like, you can let go of an old goal and embrace one that's near term, more aligned with who you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important.
I want everyone to go get that book.
Thank you.
I also want people to get your first book. And we started this episode talking about grief, and I do want to come back to Adelaide for a moment. I love that I can say her name.
Yes.
That I'm going to take with me today and on a go forward basis. How do you find joy in moments of grieving? Because is there guilt when you feel joy?
In my early grief, there was a lot of guilt when joy entered the picture, because how dare I be happy when my daughter is gone? And there was, you talk about the shame. Like, is someone going to look at me and be like, oh my goodness, she's over her daughter dying, thank goodness, or oh my goodness, I can't believe. And so there it was so complicated in those early days. And it wasn't until I attended a grief retreat with other mothers who had lost children, and we had a dance party one night, and somewhere between like Belle Biv DeVoe and the Backstreet Boys, everyone is up and
the same generation. Now that you said we are the same generation.
Everyone is up and dancing and laughing and singing, and not one of us was worried about someone judging them or how they were personally feeling about experiencing this joy, because it was such a safe space. In that space, we were still completely broken and shattered by our loss, but together we were normal broken. And I tried to take that concept forward with me, and it took time. It took years before I understood that grief and joy are two sides of the same coin. I grieve my daughter so much because she brought me so much joy, because I loved her so much. But also, I have to imagine that Adelaide would be really freaking pissed at me if she was like, I died at 4 and you're going to go and like live the rest of your life sad and depressed because I'm like, no, go live your life, go experience joy, go have fun. And I do it in her honor and in her memory. And what an incredible thing that is.
Oh, well, and one of my best friends, Jane, always says both can be true.
100%.
Both can be true.
And both 100. And sometimes I do think we need a stronger punctuation. Sometimes I think periods are okay. I am really, really upset that my daughter died, period. My life right now is really beautiful, period. And they can be two separate things. They don't have to be connected by an and or a but. They can just exist in the same sphere, and I can feel both of those emotions at the same time.
And I also like what you said when you started this answer, which is for those of us who have people in our lives who are grieving, you don't get to judge.
Correct.
You don't get to tell me that I haven't grieved long enough, or I'm happy you're past it. You don't get to have that point of view.
100%.
So I'm also going to take that for myself. FYI, I have a lot of people in my life grieving, and I don't get to have a point of view on it.
No.
Good. Okay. I want to close out this before we talk about our micro moment challenge. When we did our first ever Zoom call, you said something to me that I wrote down, and I just been thinking about it ever since. And you said to me, things don't happen for a reason. We have to make reason out of the things that happen. Yes. What does that mean? Because I loved that.
Yeah. I cannot believe that everything happens for a reason. There is no reason good enough for my daughter to have died. Like, there's just like, no one can, everything happens for a reason. No, there's no reason good enough. However, I can take her death and I can make reason out of it every single day that I'm alive. I can raise money for more epilepsy research so that the next family has better treatments or cures. I can, we donated her brain to the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation, and we got a diagnosis 4 years after she passed away. And now there is research papers out there for the next family that gets this genetic diagnosis. And now they have more information about what it means. And maybe down the road, there's some sort of cure, some sort of genetic cure that could be administered. All of it is the grief that I felt. It is, even with my breast cancer diagnosis, I am really good at putting complicated emotions into words. And so the more that I can do that, the more that I can share about these things that I'm going through, then I can help someone else. And honestly, by sharing all of that, it helps me too, because then I know that I'm not alone in all of this. Other people know they're not alone. It's all making reason out of it. And I think maybe it's just a shadow way of me trying to retain control in some ways. I'm being honest, but it also, it helps me to make meaning. It helps me to put one foot in front of the other.
And when were you able to, what was that turning point to making reason out of it? Like I imagine that was a hard turning point, or if it was just always there, like you were always kind of thinking about it.
It happened during Adelaide's life because I was grieving her long before she passed away. When you have a child with medical complexities or disabilities, you are grieving the life that you imagine for them, the life that you envisioned as a family. And so there's so much grief before that, before my daughter passed away. And so we were trying to make meaning out of this while she was alive. That's why we got involved with Cure Epilepsy, because we saw that people kept trying to shove microphones in Miguel's face or my face, asking us questions about the show. And what if we could take that question about the show and redirect it over here, and we could make meaning out of this other world that we are now a part of, this epilepsy, disability, rare disease world. We can shine a light over there. And that felt so good. In this world of counting seizures, of leaving the hospital to go watch Miguel throw out a first pitch at a Chicago Cubs game, and it felt good. It was something we could do that was good, and it doesn't erase the bad, but it does take the edge off.
And I love that you shared this with me, because I've been applying it to almost everything when I feel a setback. I've been like, what's the meaning out of this one? There's something I'm supposed to learn from this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think there's something we can take out of everything. And it's just, it's reframing it, but it's active. We have to be active in it.
Well, this is a perfect transition to our last micro moment of the season. So as I know we shared with you, this season is designed as a weekly challenge. We're giving people like a little challenge to do, and then our guest on Friday is going to talk about it. And this week is called Rewire a Fail. And it's how do we review difficult moments with compassion, look for the strengths, as opposed to thinking about win, loss, win, learn. Can you talk a little bit about your own point of view on this idea of rewiring fails, and what advice you have for people who have a setback?
Yeah, when we have a setback, it feels like a failure. But if you think about every setback as if you were a scientist, okay? Scientists go out and they will try their experiment, and they will tell you that they are going to learn more if the experiment fails than if it is successful. Because if it's successful, they may not know why it was successful. They just all of a sudden have this fact, but they don't know why. They don't know the truth of it. But every time that an experiment fails, you learn something, and then you take that forward with you. And so I like to think about my setbacks in that way, is that every single time I have a setback, that is something that I am learning and I am taking forward with me. So, 4 careers: acting, hospitality, caregiving for my daughter, and now as a writer and speaker and advocate. Every single one of those, I have skills that I have pulled through every single one of those that I am utilizing today. I certainly use those performance skills from acting on stage, speaking. I use the skills in hospitality. I did event sales and coordination. You better believe that I use that when I'm fundraising.
And on your book tour.
And on book tour. And then everything that I learned as a caregiver to Adelaide, that is my entire motivation moving forward. And I get to utilize all of that in my current career, and that is really wonderful. I don't get to be as successful as I am today without each of those careers that some may look at as a failure, each of those careers, but they weren't. They were just the stepping stone to get me to where I am, which is I'm really happy doing what I'm doing now.
I love that. That is a really great way to think about it. I love the science example. Like every failure, you get to figure out why, or you learn something that you take into the next experiment.
Yeah.
So that is a great way to think about it. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so wonderful.
I hope you loved that conversation with Kelly. This is our last episode of season 3. So for our team, it's a bit of a moment of celebration. I got so much out of this conversation with Kelly, especially for me when I'm encountering people who are going through grief or loss. I have the words now in order to have conversations that are much more meaningful. I particularly enjoyed how she talked about life transitions and identity and how we can let go of certain goals that we thought we had and embrace new ones that are more aligned with who we are. I also appreciated her talking about how we can rewire our fails, particularly how we make each failure an experiment that we get to learn why or learn how we take that information into the next time we take a risk or we jump into something. I hope you loved this episode of In Confidence. I hope you are leaving this place stronger than when you entered it. I certainly am after this conversation with Kelly. Subscribe so you never miss a moment of inspiration. And if you love this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear this today. It's also the last episode of our last quarter challenge. So if you haven't already, make sure you participate in micro moment number 10, which is how do we rewire a fail, and comment on it on LinkedIn because we have a giveaway. And number 10 is also, if you've done all 10 challenges, you get entered for a mega giveaway. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence.